Facilitator of the day, which is none other than Tuan Indra Sunjoto, Senior Assistant Chief Conservator of Forest Sabah, and also the Chief Information Officer of the Sabah Forestry Department. So Tuan Indra, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Beatrice, for your kind introduction. Yang berusaha, Mr. Frederick Coogan, the Chief Conservator of Forest, Sabah Forestry Department, distinguished guest speakers, and participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and salam Sabah Maju Jaya. First of all, on behalf of the organizing committee of Sabah Forestry Department webinar, we would like to thank to all participants for joining this session. I'm made to understand about 200 participants have registered from 56 agencies. They are from public sectors, universities, NGOs, associations, travel agencies, and forest licenses. Thank you for your support. This webinar is organized in conjunction with the International Day of Forests, or IDF 2021, that will be celebrated globally on the 21st March on Sunday. The theme of IDF 2021 is Forest Restoration, a Path to Recovery and Well-being. As to officiate this webinar, we would like to invite Mr. Frederick Coogan, the Chief Conservator of Forests, to deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Frederick, please.
Thank you, Indra. Thank you, Indra, for the kind introduction. A very good morning to all, and welcome to Sabah Forestry Department webinar, which is in conjunction with the International Day of Forests, which is 2 days from now. And as many of you may have informed, the United Nations raises awareness on the importance of forests on every 21st March of the year. And this has been proclaimed ever since 2012. And this year's IDF themes that has been chosen by the Collaborative Partnership of Forests is the theme on forest restoration, a path to recovery and well-being. This is nothing new to Sabah. Restore the forest ever since the inception of sustainable forest management in 1997. We have relied heavily on the forest for the much needed revenue to develop our state, develop Sabah. It's known fact to many that such heavy reliance has taken its toll on the forest itself. But nonetheless, it is now on the road of recovery, thanks to the many efforts, restoration efforts that has been carried out, not only by the Forestry Department, but also by our partners, be from the private sectors, the NGOs, etc. And I think I would like to record our thanks to all. Persistent consistency, the commitment to help Forestry Department, or maybe to help the state of Sabah to reforest all over these years. I think we should realize that since the inception in 1997, the implementation of sustainable, it is only about 24 years. And talking about 24 years, it is a short time frame as compared to the lifetime of forests and so forth. So we still have many more years to go in order to bring about our forests to a very healthy state. And we are quite fortunate that despite the damages or impacts that has occurred decades ago, okay, our forests, the impact are reversible, okay, reversible. And I think despite that, some of the forests may not have, for example, commercial timber, but again, it is a very important forest ecosystem that provide beneficial services And it is indeed Sabah still having forested about 64% and having set aside about 52% under protected, which is protected under forest reserve and parks and wetland. I think we should applaud ourselves in Sabah that having such a landscape, it provides beneficial benefits. And forests do plays a very important aspect in many facets of our life. It supports the timber industries. Of course, we need to restore the productive capacity of the forest by planting trees and so forth. It is also a very important ecosystem to provide, for example, combating climate change, providing water, and also sustainable livelihood community. So it is still very important, and it is very much contributing to many aspects of our life. And I think this is very important. I think on the International Day of Forests, we must recognize the importance of this. And given that the forests can be restored, and I think that will bring about meaningful contribution in the long run. And it is very important. Forest plays a very important in terms of achieving the sustainable development goals in many aspects. Poverty eradication, clean environment, etc., etc. And at the state level, and at the Sabah, for example, the current government under the tagline of Sabah Maju Jaya has in fact reiterate emphasis the importance of protecting the environment and of course the practice of sustainable forest management. And as a custodian of the forests of Sabah Tropical Rainforest, I think the department is always committed towards realizing the sustainable forest management that has always been the main core business of the forestry department. And talking about sustainable forest management, it is not only about economics, but it is also on environment and social, community, etc., etc. So late last year, I think the state government of Sabah, through forestry department, has spearheaded the state level tree planting campaign, in which we have revised our commitment to achieve about 40 million trees planted within the next 5 years. Okay, this is part of our contribution to the national 100 million tree planting campaign, which was launched by the Right Honorable Prime Minister on the 5th of January 2021 in Putrajaya. And all these are gearing towards achieving a greener environment for the nation. So on the day of and then International Day of Forests, I think we are always encouraged to demonstrate, to undertake efforts in organizing whatever awareness activities to celebrate, to promote the importance of forests. And this webinar is, even though it is 2 days in advance, is to kickstart the many activities that will be implemented by Forestry Department. And this, in a way, underscore the significant importance of environmental awareness at all levels in achieving sustainable forest management as well as biodiversity conservation, and meaning healthy forests mean healthy, resilient communities and prosperous economies. So in line with the theme of this year, International Day of Forests, the Sabah Forestry Department, as mentioned by the the facilitator as well as the MC, that we are here to promote, to inform you on what are the efforts of restoration that has been undertaken by the department. And there are various ongoing efforts, in fact, implemented by Forestry Department. And as I mentioned earlier, it is not only from Forestry Department, but also efforts by local and international agencies and also local communities. So this is, in fact, a shared responsibility and shared effort by all. And it is very enlightening to see that there are very many participants joining. That shows the interest from all. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the speakers and thank our speakers today for having, who will be sharing with us on the many efforts that have been taken. And it is hoped that the presentation would provide you a better perspective on what are the efforts that has been carried out or undertaken by other organizations or even by Forestry Department, so that we can work together as one, hand in hand, in order to bring about forest restoration in the state. We still have a long road to go because, as I mentioned earlier, 24 years is still considered short as compared to the lifetime of forest. We are talking about intergenerational contracts. Maybe not 2 generations, maybe 3, 4, 5, long-term generation of 100 years, well before over our lifetime. And it is very important, this are continued. And this is why it is very important that awareness such as this continuously organize, implement, so that we bring about that awareness to all, to our young ones and so forth. So I hope that this webinar today, even though it's rather short, only morning, but then it will bring about a very impactful, meaningful messages to the people of Sabah, Malaysia, or also to the world on what are the efforts that are being taken. And we are indeed very serious in terms of this effort, and we are always offer ourselves with open arms. Whoever would like to cooperate, collaborate in this light, I think you're most welcome. And I would like to take this opportunity also to thank many of our collaborators who have worked hand in hand with us in restoring our forest. So last but not least, I would like to again thank the organizer for having successfully organized this webinar, and hopefully that this will bring about beneficial input, insight to all of you. And happy International Day of Forest in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick Coogan, Chief Conservator of Forest, for the opening message. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps some of us not really aware about the International Day of Forest celebration. However, I would like to share some brief information about it. The International Day of Forest was first declared on the 21st of March 2012 by resolution of the United Nations General Assembly. Each year, various events celebrate and raise awareness of the importance of all types of forests. This year, International Day of Forest theme emphasized the role forests must play in building a better, healthier, and more equitable world as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, moving on now, this morning we are going to have 5 presentations from 5 guest speakers from various backgrounds. They will share their experience and information on landscape restoration program in Sabah. As a reminder to all speakers, you are allocated with 15 minutes to do a presentation. The first reminder is 1 ring, 1 minute before the end. And the second reminder is about double rings, right at the end of 15 minutes. The first speaker this morning is Mr. Robert Martin Mijol. Currently, he's working at Sustainable Forest Management Division, Sabah Forestry Department Headquarters. The title of his presentation is Forest Restoration in Bukit Piton from Degradation to Functional Forest. Mr. Robert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Indra, for the kind introduction. Let me share the screen first. Okay, yang berusaha Mr. Frederick Coogan, Chief Conservator of Forests, fellow organizer, fellow webinar participant, and happy International Day of Forests in advance. And thank you to the organizer for inviting me to present for today. And I'm going to present on forest restoration in Bukit Piton from degradation to functional forests. So I'm going to start my presentation with some background to the project on how it started. So before SFM was introduced, Sabah forests have been heavily logged in conventional way back in 17 and 80s, causing higher level of damage to existing wildlife habitats, affecting vital wildlife corridors, and low productive forests to be converted into other land use, for example, the agriculture crops. The conservation efforts is an important part of sustainable forest management, or SFM, when the state government policy emphasizes on conservation of its natural ecosystem through protected areas. So in 1989, SFM was introduced to the state government, and it was fully implemented in 1997 when Dramacut became the first SFM model and certified under well-managed forest by the FSC. Ever since that, many efforts were done to protect and conserve the forests, and this include increase of the totally protected areas to 1.9 million hectares, or 26% of its total landmass. And Sabah pledged to increase the TPA to 30% by 2025. Sabah also has increased the certified forest to 897,000 hectares through various certification bodies such as the FSC, MTCS, MSISO, and Ramsar. These positive changes are critical to conserve biodiversity in Sabah landscape and to ensure no reduction of area under forest reserve. So forest rehabilitation indeed is the important component in conservation efforts. The first rehabilitation work was started in 1992 at the Infapro area, and this is one of the biggest restoration work was implemented in Bukit Piton, which is not far from the Infapro. And all these are part of the larger Ulusagama Malwa SFM project. This is how it looks like in Bukit Piton before restoration. As you can see, it was totally degraded due to forest fires incident and past conventional timber harvesting. Despite of its degraded condition, Bukit Piton served as a vital habitat orangutan, which are trapped and isolated from the main Ulusagama by the Sungai Sagama and surrounded by the old palm plantation. And this is the closer look of the restoration program in Bukit Piton. The total area is about 11,600 hectares. There are three main partners, Dabi, WWF Malaysia, Yayasan Sabah. And the accumulated fund that were contributed in the project is about 64 million ringgit. And all these three donors share the similar objective to restore and protect of the degraded orangutan habitats in Bukit Piton. There are 5 main activities in this project. First is the preparation of the planting line, which involve preparation of the baseline and line opening. And just for info, in this project, we don't use any heavy machinery to do the site clearing. This is how it's looked like before and after the site preparation. And the second activity is the silviculture. The activity mainly focuses on climber cutting, such as the climbing bamboos, wadan, and vines, to ensure planted seedling and receive enough sunlight for the growth. And in this activity, only climbers below 5 centimeters in diameter were removed to allow wildlife, such as bird and orangutan, to get their source of food from the larger climbers. The third activity is the Comprehensive Restoration Plan, or CRP. This is the collection of information of site species matching based on shade condition, topography, and soil condition. In this activity, we also identify for no planting activity, which consists of features such as the rocky area, compacted surface of soil, and also waterlogged such as ponds and streams. The fourth activity is the planting, and this is executed by the local community. And in this planting activity, the common planting space that we use is 8 meters by 8 meters and also 10 meters by 10 meters. Okay. And this is the fifth activity is the maintenance. This is a very important and crucial stage to ensure survival of the planted seedlings from weed competition, especially in the open area. In this activity, we do circle weeding. We also cut and remove some liana that are strangle of the planted seedling. And we also do replanting and resupplying for any missing or dead seedling at the planting point. This is an aerial view after the planting activity. And we also establish a seedling nursery to ensure enough seedling stock for the planting. So what are the impacts? Since 2007, the project had restored about 11,000 hectares and planted over 1.5 million seedlings, over 95 species of indigenous dipterocarp, non-dipterocarp, pioneers, and fruit trees. This effort was recognized by the Sabah state government and decided to reclassify Bukit Piton from Class 2 commercial forest to Class 1 protection forest in 2012. This has become the most important milestone of the project, as fully dedicated to restore the ecological function and protection of vital orangutan habitat. And this is how it's looked like after the restoration. And from the ground perspective. And we have our close counterpart, WWF Malaysia, who had carried out a series of studies on orangutan in Bukit Piton since 2008. In 2013, orangutan was seen using the planted trees to swing from tree to tree and fed on fruits, barks, and young leaves in the rehabilitated area. WWF Malaysia had also carried out aerial nest surveys in 2014. And this map pattern show orangutan nest distribution is not only concentrating at the natural canopy covered areas, but also recorded at the rehabilitated and planted area. As you can see in the picture, it's a orangutan nest that was built on top of the planted talisay tree. WWF Malaysia also estimated the population of orangutan in Bukit Piton ranging from 281 to 498 individuals based on marked nest count method. The population is considered as stable, as no major catastrophes such as forest fire, habitat conversion, or killing has been reported. And this is a picture of orangutan nest that can be seen on top of the planted laran tree. And more sighting of mother and dependent young can be seen at the rehabilitated area. And mammals such as sambar deer, wild boar, mouse deer, or even elephant are more frequently sighted. Well, besides ecological benefit, the project has contributed social benefit to the local community and surrounding area. The project have employed about 40 local people, mostly from Sagama community. The project also provide economic activity to the villages by offering contract basis to restore forests, such as planting and maintaining of the planted trees. We also train about 30 people of the Sagama community to manage a small-scale nursery. And we also received some local tourism operator to bring visitors, especially from international, to sight orangutan in the wild. Potentially, it can generate income from the provided ecosystem services. So this is the challenges and lesson learned. Various operational costs per unit area were encountered, especially during the micro planning. We have made adjustment costs by looking the CRP assessment ranging from 3,500 ringgit per hectare. This is for shed area, to 5,500 ringgit per hectare. This is for open area. We also encounter inadequate labor capacity, which could easily jeopardize the progress of planting. But with the intervention and support from the partners to facilitate the appointment and payment of contractors, the overall performance was restored. Higher mortality rate of planted seedling due to competition of weeds and creepers was a big problem back then. Though with the application of controlled herbicides such as glyphosate and short maintenance run interval, these have contributed to a better survival rate. And this is, we also encountered a mortality due to prolonged drought. For this severe case, we impose stop planting orders to avoid ineffective operational practice and further loss of the seedlings. And we also encounter inaccessible road, where this give a problem when transporting seedling that are too far from the main access. But with the proper planning of maintenance of the existing of old logging roads to the planting areas has increased survival of the transported seedlings. So this is the way forward. Further study for site species matching to reduce mortality rate at the open area. We also encourage researchers to conduct more orangutan study in response to forest restoration. And this project can be used as a model and replicated to other forest reserves to restore degraded forest into functional forest ecosystem, especially for wildlife habitat. And I would like also to conclude that the restoration work is very challenging and costly to implement. However, it is worth to see forest coming back to its natural stand, and restoration has always been the key conservation strategy to safeguard orangutan and other wildlife habitat and the survival in Sabah. And I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge three main donors, Yayasan Sabah, WWF Malaysia, SIMDABI, for their full support and contribution to make this project a success. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
For sharing your good story. And indeed, Bukit Piton is one of important forest restoration. Yeah. For those who wants to experience more about a forest restoration, please do visit Bukit Piton Forest Reserve. Our next speaker is actually Dr. Yap Sawai. She's General Manager of Conservation Area Management, Denom Taliwas Silam, and Forest Rehabilitation Division of Yayasan Sabah Group. The title of her presentation is Inikia, a large-scale forest rehabilitation project, Tawau Sabah. Dr. Yap Sawai, please.
Thank you, Indra. I'm going to share the screen now. Thank you for the invitation to this webinar, the first for this year. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm presenting is one of our two large scales rehabilitation project in Yayasan Sabah. This is the second rehabilitation project. It's called Inikia. It's a joint collaboration between Yayasan Sabah and also IKEA from Sweden. And this large scale project, it's actually done in Tawau, Sabah, on the East Coast. And this project is actually managing by my staff, Mr. David Aloysius. So the location of this project is right on the, if you look at the map, it's on the southern side of the concession of Yayasan Sabah.
Apologies, Dr. Yap. Sorry
Yes,
to stop you. Can you share the presentation view, Dr. Yap?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, slideshow, please. Yeah, because right now we can see your notes.
Yes, please share the full screen, the slideshow, Dr. Yap.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Can you see it?
Yeah, still doesn't work, I think. Yeah. I guess you click on the slideshow icon there. No, maybe you can proceed here while waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the area is on the southern side.
Okay, this is better.
My screen was locked actually.
Yeah, apologize for that. Okay, working now.
Okay.
Proceed, Dr. Yap. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. It's actually located on it covers an area of 18,500 hectares, and this forest is actually degraded by the forest fire way back in 1982-83, the big fire in Borneo that engulfed actually on the mostly on the eastern side, east coast of Sabah. Stop dulu. Screen. Sorry, Indra, there's something wrong with the screen. Okay. The rehabilitation actually started in 1998.
Yeah.
And the objective of this project is actually looking at biodiversity because of this severely degraded forest. So what we do enrichment planting with indigenous species. The forest, as you can see, was regenerated with just only the pioneers or sometimes open areas. And now we are looking into a multi-canopy tree forest. We have already planted 5 million of these indigenous forest seedlings and covering about 74 indigenous species. That's mainly from the diplocarps, the non-diplocarps, and also wild fruit trees. Achievement to date is we have already planted 14,000 hectares, and this is covering under 4 phases. Every phase is a 5 years phases. The mean survival rate for this line and gap planting, because we have 2 types of approach due to the various forest conditions. So we have the mortality rate 3 years after planting. 3 years after planting, we have a survival of about 40%, and it drops down to 17% after 20 years. For the other enrichment planting that large scales that we have, our survival rate is much higher. It's very different in terms of the forest condition. Whereas in the main survival for gaps, we have a much more better survival rates from 60% to 34% in 20 years. 34. Okay, the possible reasons for this mortality is mainly because after we planted, there's a lot of prolonged drought in this area. And certain season, we have a lot of predation from mammals, especially like wild boars. And then sex species matching is also another issue, because when we started learning, this is a learning process that we have gone through. And in terms of natural selection, there are also some death. Another one is a human factor. We have done some small trials on this species trials on the growth over the last 20 years. They're ranging from 8 meter height to 15 meters height, and also the diameter of from 7 to 16 centimeter dBH. This is a line planting tree species. The largest, one of the largest species that planted that we have is this 23-year-old Shora Rapusula. It's already reached 40 meters and with a dBH of 65 cm. In InfaPro, over the 28 years, is almost similar, but we have the 2 species there. I guess apparently the soils in Tawau is much more, have some volcanic soils, so they may be contributing factor to this. Another examples of the big Shora Rapusula tree species here. In terms of research, this project facilitate and provide support to the local and the graduate students, both local and overseas, and also internship. We also have some long-term research program, and this is to look at the shade adjustment, the nursery techniques, even the fertilizer trials and the species trials. And we also have large-scale experimental areas to attract international researchers to look at the forest dynamics of the recovery of the forest. So far in IKEA, we have already completed, 51 researchers have completed their studies over the years, from bachelor to postdoc. Socially contribution is that we have employed more than 700 locals since inception. In this way, we have also provide free housing, medical, SOCSO, and other facilities for the staff. Under the IKEA regulations, they have these IWA standards, and we have to follow that and get and endorse IWA standards for these working conditions. And on the job training experiences for this staff, internal courses also is to enhance the capacitating for the staff. Clinic facilities is available for the people in Luosong, so in Tawau, and the availability of primary school. So in terms of their family also. Some of this, the look of the staff quarters in Luosong that we provided to them. These are the 3 ID courses that we frequently have to provide to the staff, because to refresh them and also for the new staff that comes in. The issues and the challenges that we have over the last 20 years is to look at to improve their survival rates. So some of the ways is to look at high quality seedlings that we raise, and how should we properly planning for this to avoid the dry season, and adequate training for the staff. And there is also there is a need to have a consistent after planting maintenance, because this is also a big contributing factor to the mortality of the seedlings, and if they're not maintained once you're planted. The choice of species is also very important. This is why site species matching is one of the ways that we are looking at. Maintaining access to the working area is one of the big chunk of our budget. It actually goes into the road maintenance. Before we use a contractor, but now we are using our own fleet of heavy machineries. This is actually to be more cost effective. Maintenance to the infrastructures and facilities. So to reduce costs, we do a lot of this in-house as much as possible. We also look at the budget control and monitoring. This is to allow this some inflation into the budget because it varies. Over the last in year 2019 alone, we already have more than 3 times these basic salaries are being revising. So this affects all our budget availability. So the workforce and manpower is also one of big factor. So if a lack of a capable force and a high turnover of staff, this we need a continuous internal training because as new people comes in, we have to be trained. To attract youngsters, especially the youth, we also have to attract this new technology in because youngsters they need internet facilities and all such. So for the families, they need free transport to the schools and all that for their families. So these are all we have to provide to attract the skilled manpower to continuously work with the project. We also have to attract them with remunerative packages because there's a lot of competitive of salary and benefits also from the other projects and the oil palm plantations surrounding the area. In conclusion, INICIA actually proves that large scale rehabilitation is possible. So the organization from top management right to include the collaborator supports in providing sustainable funding is very necessary for long-term success in a rehabilitation project. Because once you plant, you need to maintain them, and not only to maintain them to survive, but also to maintain them to grow well. So the project is also, since it was in the beginning, 1998 was the last scales of pioneering this work. Many costs that we incurred was not captured in our total costing. So this is why I didn't give any actual costing here, because it's quite a lot of costings was not given. Different objectives actually leads to different approach. As you can see from the Bukit Piton, from the first speaker, Robert has already displayed that this leads to different ways of doing it and also different way of costing too. So with that, thank you very much. Indra, I leave this floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yap, for sharing your most valuable experience. No doubt that INICIA is one of the iconic restoration program, specifically on rehabilitation of degraded forests. All distinguished participants, should you have any question, kindly please type your question at the Q&A icon, and please mention to whom you address the question. As of now, I think we have received one question to Robert Mijol. Probably you can respond. And also from the chat icon, Prof. Pua also addressed one question to Robert. Perhaps you can type respond on the Q&A icon. After hearing to Inland Forest Restoration Program, the next speaker will share his experience on Klias Pit Swamp Forest Restoration. The presenter is Mr. Christopher Matunjau, and currently he is Division of Forest Sector Planning at Sabah Forest Department Headquarters. Without further ado, Mr. Christopher, your show time.
Thank you, Session Chair Indra, for your kind intro. Let me just share you my slides. Yeah, all right, okay. A very good morning to our conservator, if he's still here, my learned friends, ladies and gentlemen. As mentioned by the chair, I am going to share with you on our hands-on experience in restoring peat swamp forests with particular reference to those forest reserves at Klias Peninsula. So before I proceed further, I would like to note my appreciation to Ms. Heidi Henry for gathering and compiling most of this material for this session. Without it, this presentation will not be possible. So my presentation will be the four main section. I will introduce briefly on what is peat and why we need to restore them and the challenges that we face and the lesson learned from it. And hopefully I can conclude it or wrap the whole thing up on time to give ample time for Q&A. So ladies and gentlemen, for those of you whom had just tuned in to Peatland channel, let me just recap to you what is peat all about. So basically it's comprised of woody material, forest litter, and 90% of it are from these materials. And peat is very acidic in nature, just like those juruk or boso, excuse my French. And this is because of the bacterial activity during decomposition process. So what is peat ecosystem? Basically, it's a peat ecosystem basically consists of three major components, all the living things above the peat soils, flora, fauna, you name it. And then you have the peat soil. And of course, below it, you have the very unique characteristic of the hydrological system. And where can we find peat in Sabah? So the most peat deposit in Sabah we can find is at the southern part of Kota Kinabalu, is the Klias Peninsula. There are three major forest reserves there, which has some sort of a peat deposit. The first one is a Bin Suluk Forest Reserve, Padas Damit, and Klias Forest Reserve. So Klias Forest Reserve is considered the most intact ecosystem among these three. And then it is the most studied peat ecosystem as well. And for Bin Suluk, repeated fire in the past, in the 90s, late 90s, had raised an area of approximately about 75 or 75% of the area had been burned. And while Padas Damit is considered to have a very low king of timber trees. So this is another map showing you the classification of this reserve in our forest enactment. So only Padas Damit is classified under amenity forest reserve, while Klias and Bin Suluk is classified under class 1 protection forest reserve. So why do we need to conserve our forest reserve? So basically, whenever a peat ecosystem is degraded, it seems to be going some sort of a process. So when this happens, the ground will be lowered and it will eventually be waterlogged in the long run. Once it waterlogged, it cannot be restored with any planting or seedlings. And the only thing that grows over there is like infestation of ferns and lalangs, and of course some aquatic habitats, of course. You can find there, but whenever a fire occurs, all right, these lalang and ferns will act as a burning fuel. So together with the water, the lalangs and ferns, it can produce a very smoke that can choke us to death. So that's why we need to restore a degraded peat swamp before it comes to this stage. In the past, we also house events. Apart from other studies, we also house events for CLIA's ecosystem of peat forest reserve, like cycling to the community and to the local community, and some training. And we have also annual visit from schools, international school, all the way from Japan. And there are so many more trainings, like fire trainings, school, and all that, so on. So restoration in CLIA's forest reserve started way back in early 2000 with the initial assistance from UNDP GAF together with Danida, and of course funding from the government of Malaysia through Rancangan Malaysia ke-8, 8 Malaysian Plan. And during that time, we are only testing a few of the areas. We are testing a lot of species, and up until now, we have restored or planted about more than 200 hectares. It's a bit slow, but it's still ongoing. So among the species that we tested in the early days were like the species like Bintangor, Serungan, Ramin, Kapur, Pulai, and so on. So during those years, after some time, we found out that the species Serungan or Cratoxylon arborescens, those of you are familiar with the species, seems to thrive well under degraded open condition compared to other species, whereby they require some sort of degree of shading before they can grow better. So ladies and gentlemen, during our planting, we sometimes face challenges, and during those planted plots also, we encountered repeated fire, and then we have to plant again at the same plot. So these require a lot of cost of funding. And apart from that, there are not so many choices around to select, apart from Serungan, to plant, especially in open areas. And to some extent, the environment is also very harsh to work with. Nobody wants to work in a very hot and sometimes muddy environment, and to carry the seedlings some 2-3 kilometers away with a muddy situation, quite tiring. And also in some cases, we have this Bornean badger. The locals call it kadurau. So it has a very unpleasant smell when it produces its time bomb. All right. Some of you might know about this animal. So they seems to like to salvage the topsoils and the planting pots, the seedlings, to find worms for their daily diet. This is also a problem for us during the early planting stage. And what have we learned from this number of years in planting of a peat swamp? So the first, planning is a must. Know your area. Before you do some planting, you must select wisely your area where there is all year round waterlogged or only partially waterlogged. Because if it's all year round waterlogged, you cannot plant anything there. Then you may require mounting for planting, but then over time the mounting will collapse. And then again, your seedling will also not grow as well. So the best way is that to find an area that is not really waterlogged, okay? And then the choice of species. Probably based on our experience in the early stage, we can do planting for the species like serungan in the early stage. Once we develop that some sort of shading, only then probably we can mix it around with other choices of our species that we intend to plant, like kapur or seraya or ramen. And then it requires a lot of funding as well, from planting and then up to the maintenance. And then in our experience, we sometimes maintain our seedling up to the age of 4 years. But it also pays us well in terms of the growth, especially on serungan that we have experienced for 15 years of serungan. Some of them had grown up to 38 centimeter of diameter. Okay. And the way forward. So what is installed for Clears Peninsula for the next 5 years or so? So at the moment, we have a project like Sustainable Management of Peatland Ecosystem of Malaysia that will include some sort of restoration and also other activities as well, like awareness, preparation of management plan, intelligence cooperation, and so on. And the second part is about the sustainable use of peatland and haze mitigation. This is a 2-year project. It's more on mitigation of fire and haze, like the preparation, preparedness, more on preparedness before any pit fire occurs. So of course, we also receive funding from Rancangan Malaysia ke-12, the 12th Malaysian Plan, but it will only start next year. For this year, we have a limited resource for that. Okay, and based on the early this week, we heard about the Clears Peninsula, the plan to put it on Ramsar site. So this is ongoing. At the moment, we sub this endeavor, and we'll see whether we are qualified or not. There's a lot of things to be done before we can declare it as a Ramsar site. So in conclusion, in terms of pit restoration, just to wrap it up, we need a good planning, find where to restore, where to plant, not just simply find degraded areas and just put the plants there. It might not grow. And then huge funding must be continuous, at least for maintenance purposes. And then proper. Oh, thank you. Okay. And some proper mitigation measures on pit fire need to be done. And with that, I thank you and selamat Hari Perhutanan Sedunia.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher, for sharing your excellent experience and keep us on time. Indeed, restoring a pit swamp area is very challenging, totally different than inland forest. We have to deal with different species and different soil type. Ladies and gentlemen, landscape restoration does not require rocket science skills. However, to execute this program, besides knowledge, it will require a lot of passion and energy. The next speaker will elaborate how local community has contributed in restoration of riparian area at Kinabatangan, with the title of Kopel, Tree Planting and Restoration Activities in Kinabatangan with Community. Mr. Fikri Rosli will share his story. Mr. Fikri is a research officer at Kinabatangan Forestry District Office and native to Batu Putih, Kinabatangan. Mr. Rosli, the session.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Mr. Indra. Let me share my screen first. Okay. 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 Assalamualaikum and good morning to Chief Conservator of Forest, Mr. Frederick Cogan, and to hello.
Yeah, just proceed.
Wait a
Proceed,
moment.
Fikri. Fine.
I think my presentation is not showing, bahkan.
Ada on screen now.
Yeah, on
But
screen.
please put on the slide show mode. Yeah.
Okay.
Just now is okay actually.
I think there's a problem with my slideshow. Just give me a moment. Okay. All right. Better. Okay. Yeah. Assalamualaikum and good morning to the Chief Conservator of Forest, Mr.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Indra, the facilitator, fellow panelists, and to all participants. My name is Mohammad Shafikri, and I will be sharing about copal tree planting and restorations with the community. Okay. My key point of my presentations is forest degradations in Lower Kinabatangan, community involvement in the restoration works, overall outcomes up to date. So the map showing on the screen is the Lower Kinabatangan corridor of life. It consists.
Apologies,
Excuse me.
Fikri. Yeah.
Sorry.
Excuse
Yes.
me, Fikri. Maybe you can put on the slideshow mode. Sorry, yeah? Still on the slide. Yeah, I think. Sorry
Okay.
to interrupt you, but I think we cannot see your presentation clearly now. Can you?
Wait.
Yeah, maybe what you can do is you stop sharing first and then you reshare it again. But we can see your screen right now. Maybe, okay.
Yep.
No worries.
All right. I think I have a trouble with my camera. When it's all right.
Just carry on, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
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 So
Okay,
Okay.
better now. Thanks.
okay. All right. So Lower Kinabatangan corridor of life consists of Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary and other forest reserve under management of Sabah Forestry Department. So why it is imperative to do restorations in this Lower Kinabatangan? This is because it holds international significance because of its high conservation value. And this forest is a viable habitat for with high biodiversity, and it contains endangered species such as orangutan, pygmy elephant, and others. So Kopel is situated in between of the Pinsupu Forest Reserve, as shown in the slides. So Kopel is a cooperative, which is a community-based ecotourism, and formed by 4 villages that is settled around the area of the Pinsupu Forest Reserve. So the main activities is ecotourism, of course, which include homestay, nature guide service, boat service, and it uses the nature as its main product. So in the Lower Kinabatangan, it is very special because it holds all 10 primate species of primates and all 8 species of hornbills and other endangered and vulnerable species of birds and mammals. So all is not well in the corridor of life. Why? Because in 1997 and 1998, El Nino drought has caused a forest fire in this Lower Kinabatangan. I think it's affected whole Sabah during that time, and up to 40% of the Lower Kinabatangan's forests are degraded up until now. So what happened is after 20 years of the forest fire events, the natural regeneration is slow, and it's almost showing no almost zero regenerations up to date, natural regeneration. So this is the common view of the degraded sites in Lower Kinabatangan. And to describe more on these degraded sites, so we define the degraded forest as no canopy cover, fewer trees, and inclusions of weed species such as climbing vines and bamboos. So this is what it looked like, degraded forest, 90% degraded forest in Lower Kinabatangan. This is the typical view of it. So this is what it seems on the ground. So as you can see, the thick layer of vines and bamboos, climbing bamboos, engulfing the trees. And to discuss more about the degraded forest in the area of the community, Watuputi community, is that a total of 2,269 hectares has been degraded. This is mostly from the forest fire back in the 1997 and 1998. So the most affected or the most burnt forest is the peat swamp forest. This is because it contains high undecomposed organic material that is susceptible to fire, and Pinsupu is the most affected by the forest fire compared to other places. But this is because a large portion of this forest reserve is a peat swamp forest, and a total of 1,951 hectares, or 42% of this forest reserve, are degraded until now. So how the community involved with the forest restoration? So the involvement dates back to 1996 with the idea for the community to get involved in tourism. So the idea behind the community involvement revolved around three reasons. So first is to create economic value for the local community without endangering the forest. And second, to create sense of appreciation and value, or we call it sense of ownership. And last one is to get this community involved or active participation in the forest conservation. So the restoration work began with a committee, with a key committee helping the Sabah Forestry Department to combat fires in February-April 1998. And the fire actually raised awareness about how damaged and degraded the situation was in Pinsupu Forest Reserve. And COPEL began to work to restore the degraded forest in 1999. So this means COPEL has been doing this work for more than 22 years. So initially, the work concentrated on tree planting, but many failures with species choice because of the sites were flooded. Because the peat swamp, most of this forest reserve is a peat swamp. It's almost all year round waterlogged, so it's very, very susceptible to flood. And maintenance is another challenge because of the rapid growth of the vines, climbing bamboos, and grasses on the other sides, or on these sites. And later we discovered that by removing all the vines and grasses, we experience an amazing response in natural regenerations. Naturally, the regenerating trees were healthier and fast growing than the planted trees. So this is the view after the vine clearing and grass cutting by our community. And later, COPEL experimented on the other sides with different tree species, tree sizes, and spacing. So tree species planted often have a small crown, especially the pioneer species, hence it grows better at the closer spacing. And COPEL has experimented with 1 by 1 meter spacing with exceptionally good results. These sites only need maintenance for 1 year because the tree have formed a closed canopy, and COPEL current ideal spacing is 2 by 2 meter. So this is one of the examples of 1 by 1 meter spacing tree planting in one of the restoration sites in Pinsupu Forest Reserve. So this area is formerly a stumping site for logs and timber before being transported to Sandakan. So after just a few years, this area is fully restored by fully restored by one spacings. And another examples we did in the riparian reserve adjacent to the Ladang Batu Putih. We did a restoration with a 2 by 2 meter spacing, and the results is quite amazing because it successfully restored the area and the tree grow better and bigger. So the key pioneer species planted are nuclear species, Mollutus meticus, Colonna serratifolia, and Octomelis sumatrana. So Coppel's core business is tourism, but it is very important to understand that the core product Coppel is selling is actually conservation works. So more than 70% of Coppel's tourists are students and volunteers. The main reason they stay at Coppel is to contribute to the forest restoration programs. In Coppel cases, the tourism restoration work contribute to employment and conservation outcomes. And Coppel works at the interface of sustainable forest management. There is a beneficial overlap between community-based tourism and the community forestry, which has worked to the advantage of the forest management and the community. So the outcomes so far, up to date, Coppel has restored more than 350 hectares of forest since it began the work in 1999, and it's translated to roughly 400,000 trees planted over the last 20 years. And Coppel collects fees from the tourists for Sabah Forestry Department, and in 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, Coppel collected a total of 63,000 166 ringgits for the state government of Sabah just for 1 year. And Coppel employs on average of 134 people from the surrounding community and now employs 6 university graduates surrounding the community. And Coppel continues to share data and experience, especially with the Forest Research Center, Sepilop. And this work has supported and contributed to many other forest restoration initiatives in the Lower Kinabatangan. So forest restoration has turned out to be major blessings for Coppel because since COVID-19, it's a disaster and a downturn for the tourism in all over the world. And Coppel has been able to continue its conservation activities. And forest restoration has been taken over as the most important economic activity for Coppel. And now Coppel can say forest restoration is its core business. So way forward, today Coppel is exploring a number of techniques such as pole planting, marcots or ficus, and also experimenting with enrichment planting, and Coppel are actively looking for support from various scientific aspects of restoration, especially soil science, microbiology, hydrology, and to help make this activity more knowledge-based. And it's also contribute as a citizen science to the local community here. And for the key take-home message is from the restoration perspective is that there is still many things to learn about forest ecology and plant ecology in Kinabatangan. And Coppel focus is on trying to understand why these sites are not restoring naturally. And Coppel's work is at best trying to enhance or speed up the natural regeneration process with interventions such as vine clearing and tree planting. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Fikri, for sharing your very inspiring story. By empowering local communities to restore forests can provide human well-being benefits, especially to rural community as well as environmental benefits. Now we will have opportunity to hear about mangrove ecosystem rehabilitation. The next speaker is Dr. Joseph Tanga, the Iron Man for mangrove restoration. For the past 15 years, he had spent time with mud and coastal environment. He is currently a research officer at Forest Research Center Sepilok with the title Rehabilitation of Degraded Mangroves in Sabah, a decade of Sabah Forestry Department ISMI collaboration. Without further ado, Joseph Tangasan, please.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Indra. A very good morning to you, and good morning, everyone. I would like to share with you all the presentation for today. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tuan Indra, once again. Good morning, everyone. Happy International Day of Forest. So, this morning, I just want to share a little bit about this SFD ISMI collaboration in Sabah. And we have come to 3 phases of MOU since the fruitful and memorable study tour that we have back in 2007. Yeah, that's why Tuan Indra said just now it's about more than 13 years, 15 years, I think. Yeah, from the first visit. So I will talk briefly on the my sharing today this morning, that is introduction and issue and challenges related to this project, special case studies, what we have achieved so far for the past 10 years with this collaboration, lessons learned in conclusion. Yeah. And first of all, we would like to mention that study by Omar and Misman last year found out that 60% of mangrove in Malaysia are in Sabah, but don't get too excited. Save the date for more enforcement. Yeah. So, and more than 90% of mangrove in Sabah are within the permanent forest estate, that is class 5, 4, 1, 6, so forth and so yeah. And there are 4 main zonations of mangrove in Sabah. Just to recap: seaweed zone, main mangrove zone, back mangrove zone, and riparian fringe. Those that riparian fringe is actually the most susceptible for more encroachment. Yeah. Okay. So these are the, even though we have the largest mangrove in Malaysia, but that doesn't mean that all are safe, or by saying that we are facing with number of encroachment, poaching, expansion of human settlement, erosion. All these are enabler for mangrove extension, but well, we will look into this maybe from time to time. So what I'm interested in sharing to you is this, what we have been doing for the past 10 years. Yeah? And I'm looking into the case study number 1, that is Sungai Ismi. The interesting part of this is that the funding agency for this project is actually helping hand in planting mangrove in Sabah. That was in 2012 by this Tokyo Marine in ISMI official, planted more than 4,000 planting material of mangrove in Sungai Ismi. We named Sungai Ismi because in honoring the involvement of the society, helping Sabah Forestry Department to rehabilitate degraded mangrove in Sabah. Yeah? So we capture the progress yearly since 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, the growth rate of the planted mangrove in this particular rehabilitation site is very good, or showing luxuriant growth, meaning beating up or replanting of that particular area is no longer needed. It's 2017, and most of the time during our project steering committee meeting in held in Sabah, the official from the funding agency, especially ISMI, will come to the site to visit themselves, and most of the time they are very happy with the progress and what we are doing. So 2020, and just last week I visited the place, and then so I bring you to the project site number 2 in somewhere in Kunak, that is Sungai Tokyo Marine. We name after the funding agency, a funding donor, that is Tokyo Marine Nichido. So we name this abandoned shrimp farm in Kunak, or I will say it's an encroached mangrove turned into shrimp farm, but then abandoned after a few years, and the Sabah Forestry Department comes in and rehabilitate this area. It's about 56 hectares. So there are 15 ponds altogether. So we contracted this out in 2014 and 15, and we did the beating up in 2016. And here we are, 2017, showing gregarious growth. And once again, the official from ISMI all the way from Japan will come to Sabah, visit all the planting site. So this is not an playing field to do that. Yeah, 2019 and 2020. So by looking at these pictures, we can see the difference of each pond. Yeah. So case study number 3, we also named this project site in honoring the involvement of Sabah Forestry Department with the Tropical Biosphere Research Center from the University of Ryukyus, Okinawa, doing their collaboration research with researcher from Sabah Forestry Department. So we started rehabilitation program in this particular area in 2016, 2017, and 2018. We encountered these animals, goats, kambing, feeding on our planted seedling. Yeah, but one way to avoid this threat from goats, we just leave the planting site bushy. Don't clean the bushes, just do some circle cleaning, and then just to discourage the goats to enter the planting site. So we managed to do that, and the planting site showing good growth. So now we come to this interesting phenomenon of accretion of mangrove mudflat, yeah, somewhere in Western Bay, Beaufort. That was in 2016 that we encountered this accumulation of mudflat in that bay because of the high, very activities in along the river ecosystem, yeah, and accumulate sediment from upper land, then form the accretion of mudflat in that particular site. So we started planting during low tide in 2016. Yeah, when we estimated that the mudflat has an area of 150 hectares. Yeah, so for the phase 2, we identified 39 hectares on this mudflat that is within the Western Forest Reserve in Beaufort, and we also plant during high tide just to make sure that the mudflat is plantable, not only during low tide, but also during high tide. So by 2017, we recorded first infestation of moth caterpillar. That is first record for Sonoratia cassiolaris leaf. And from doing that, also we carried out planting from the school children, especially from Tokyo High School from Japan, and of course also from the Sabah Forest Department itself, 2017 and 2018, yeah. And 2019, we encountered another infestation by this caterpillar, the same caterpillar, moth. I call it a feeding festival because the moths did not, I mean the caterpillar did not do any harm to that trees, the Sonoratia cassiolaris. We just go and eat those, and then after a few weeks, the Sonoratia trees will flush out new leaf, which is the trait of this moth caterpillar is not giving any harm to the tree. Yeah? So 2019, the Tokyo Marine Nichida official once again visited us and plants mangrove in that area. And this is just showing satisfaction after planting more than 3,000 planting material. Yeah. So just highlight to you the formation of mudflat, mangrove mudflat from empty, from nothing, from devoid of vegetation to what it is now, what it is in 2019. Yeah. And we have construct another concrete signboard along this island. We have put signboard surrounding this island, mudflat island. We call it Pulau Ismi. Yeah? So 2020 last year, no visit from Japan or from outside from Sabah, only the Sabah Forestry Department. And this was the concrete signboard. And last year, we managed to trace the Ismi Island on Google Earth map, which is good for record. Yeah. And then 2021, February, last month, we continue to plan on the second phase of this project collaboration. And last week, yeah. So what have we learned from this collaboration? Of course, we know how to rehabilitate degraded mangrove. Any kind of degraded mangrove, we can always rehabilitate them as long as we are allowed to do the rehabilitation program. Yeah? So it is important to encourage, as the previous speakers saying, that local community participation is important. And of course, the most important thing again is the support from government. Yeah. So highlight of achievement so far, we have covered. This is a muddy area, mangrove. It's not easy to walk. It's not easy to. It's not accessible. You have to go by boats, or you have to go somewhere very difficult. So that's why we only managed to cover 300 hectares, 371 hectares approximately. And then greater cooperation among all the stakeholders so far. And so far, like 2 books were published. Yeah. And planting location, phase 1, and the yellow and white box. Phase 3 now, that is, we identified planting site in Kuala Abai, Sulaman wetland, yeah, and Sampurna. And in conclusion, so you can way that rehabilitated mangrove will prevent further erosion along the waterways. Yeah, in the long run, this collaboration project will beneficial to all related stakeholders and will contribute in climate change mitigation, definitely. And as the way forward, this collaboration will continue to rehabilitate all degraded mangrove and mangrove associated throughout Sabah. So I would like to acknowledge the Chief Conservator of Forest inviting us to present this project, and the Tokyo Marine Nichida, the funding agency, and all staff member of the project. So without further ado, I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you. Thank you, Tuan Indra.
Thank you for your very inspiring presentation as well. Hopefully we can rehabilitate more and more new mudflat island at Klias and western area and creating new mangrove forests. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Q&A session. Before we go to the Q&A session, I would like to invite all the speakers to unmute yourself and also make the video available. I think we have received several questions from Q&A box. Possibly, do we open for live bet at the moment? Not? Or we to respond lively? Hold on. I would like to read first from anonymous. Pematunjau, when the area is waterlogged, what can be done if we want to restore the area? What do restoration in pit area? Serungan species is preferred. So I guess Mr. Chris would like to answer lively. Yeah? Mr. Chris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for refreshing the two questions actually from the Malu attendee, anonymous. Okay, whenever an area is waterlogged, tes suara dulu, everybody can hear? Okay. What can be done? Well, actually not much can be done, but there's one method that we tried in Malaysia that we tried in the past. It's called mounting. This is not a veterinarian punya terms. Mounting is just simply take soils, planting media, we put it in the waterlogged area, and we reclaim the area to a certain height. And then we plant the seedling. But unfortunately, on the soils collapse over time. When they collapse, and the seedling will also be waterlogged. So once waterlogged, and then of course the seedling dies. If we want to do a very high or adequate amount of mounting to these waterlogged areas, we need a very costly. Okay, we need a lot of funding for that. And apart from that, you also need to understand the hydrological system of that area. When it's during rainy season, when it's what is the height of that water level, and then what is the water level. So this all of these things that you need to understand before you embark to such a method. And for the species serungan, it may work at Klias Peninsula, but it may not work to other sites in Malaysia. But this is what we have experienced in our open degraded pit areas. So in a later stage, if there's any use of that area to be some sort of diverting from monocrop to many species, then we can plant some more other species like kapur or ramen or pulai. We feel that there's enough tree cover above ground. Okay, probably those who had been in degraded peat areas, the environment is quite hot when it's hot. So it's not very conducive for seedlings to grow. And we found out that only sarungan you can first stage. So I hope that will answer the question from the anonymous attendee.
Thank you, Chris, for the response. Again, from another anonymous attendee, Malu attendee, to and also Christopher, is there any planning to measure, monitor, and monetize the emission reductions achieved through the forest restoration activities carried out? I guess this question is about carbon, talking about carbon. So any response from Dr. Joe or even from Dr. Christopher?
Well, in general, they had been studied on emissions, not specific on clears, but in general, peat. Frim had done some studies, I suppose, in the past, but for clears itself, not really. But carbon storage, we only when measuring the depth of the peat at Clears Forest Reserve, it can be just in depth. The deepest peat is about 7 over 7 meters. So that's about it. And then the next thing forward is just calculating what is carbon stored under the water level and above water level. So above water level, if it's degraded, normally it will decompose and subsides over time if there's no management intervention. But anyway, current rough idea in general. All right.
If you want to add another information on this question, Dr. Joe? If none, then we go to the next anonymous attendee question. Again to Dr. Joseph, may we get more insight on the effort made by SFD to promote community involvement to rehab mangrove areas? Why do you think the response or involvement is low? Dr. Joe?
Oh, okay. Why? Oh, the reason of community involvement is it? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. This is the problem with our. I would say it's a maybe interest from the local community. So what we have been experiencing for the past 15 years with mangrove, yeah, it's actually their interest on mangroves is just that it is a kind of responsibility is from the government agency. So if we ask them to collaborate with us, for example, we call gotong royong. You have to have a big budget for that, because definitely we need to have some kind of preparation to do that. Unlike this Japanese community who have been experiencing this, we are still not aware of the importance of wetland ecosystem. Actually, to us, Sabah Forestry Department, to us researchers, it's in our mind or in our heart already. But to the local community. They are still have something on their mind, aiming for something for that particular land. They want to involve for what? If they want to involve, they must have something in return. This is the problem. This is the main problem that we are seeing from the past few years, maybe the next few years. So I would say I don't have any idea of how to increase the awareness. Perhaps our environmental education program is one way of them, university one way of them doing community awareness program. Yeah, this is I don't have any straight answer. Maybe Tuan Indra have the answer, because Christopher also have the same answer. I cannot give a definite answer on that, because yeah, why they are not interested in this. Kopel just saying that no, you want to involve, but they are thinking of something else. Yeah, like in Sampurna, I've been to Sampurna doing the rehabilitation. So it's like the Sabah begging them to please don't destroy more of this ecosystem. I've been to Beaufort wetland area. In that particular area, we plant mangrove, but that particular area is their fishing ground. So how we want to, there's a kind of connection that we need to establish for that. So I think my answer to that is a subjective method. Community involvement is, we haven't reached the stage that we come, we plan together. No, Japanese culture, we haven't reached to that level yet, that we can come together without expecting in return. Here in Malaysia, here in Sabah, we did not reach to that level yet. I think that's my from my heart. Yeah, thank you, Indra.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jose. Yeah, I think we share the common what I call sentiment as well. I mean that the awareness among the community, especially at the coastal area, is still very low, and this is the challenge for not only for Sabah Forestry Department, but for all of us Sabahan, and this is the platform for all parties, NGOs, or even the community leaders to what do you call, together we can build up the momentum and also the spirit. Anyway, this is a long subject, long topic to be discussed. And the next question, I believe, is from Mr. Ahmad Zaidi Yahya, correct, Vivian? Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think this is quite open to to all the speakers, I guess. Any experience in Sabah in the restoration of ex-mining land to be shared? And currently, I'm doing the afforestation of the extinct mining lands in terms of preparing the site, species planted, and survival. I do understand probably Mr. or Dr. Ahmad Zaidi Yahya is doing restoration maybe in Perak or maybe in Selangor, yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, as Sabah Forestry Department concerned, experience in doing the ex-mining land restoration. But I guess Mr. Chris wants to share something, probably. Chris, please.
Thank you, Shenche. Yeah, tin tailings in most probably the problem in Selangor, Perak, to restore the area. Probably only Acacia will strive. I don't know. But in Sabah, we have some effort in restoring the ex-mining in Mamut Ranau, somewhere in the middle of Sabah. they have been doing what do you call after the company leaves, there's some effort in doing restoration work. I don't know what type of species they're restoring over there. Some parts are growing, I noticed, but I don't have the full report on that because it is done by other opera agencies. Okay, but it's not in tailings. It's more like tembaga tailings, copper tailings. Yeah, all right. So that's about it. I can share with you all.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I think the Mammoth Copper Mine, ex-Mammoth Copper Mine area is a bit different because of the altitude and also surrounding environment. So I'm not sure if it can fit to Perak and Selangor condition, yeah, because Mammoth located, I think, about 2,000 above sea level, the what I call the altitude. Okay, next question is from, hold on, Mr. Daim, yeah, Mr. Daim. Okay, the question addressed to Mr. Christopher. Based on your experience on pit swamp management, which months the best time to do replanting on pit land, especially Clays Peninsula? Okay, Chris, over to you.
To me, that is a golden question. If you do it in rainy season, most of the areas are waterlogged. Then your seedlings will die. You do it in dry seasons, you may caught up in the middle of the fire. So we don't talk about season. We go just to the site to assess whether the planting site is waterlogged or not. Best to do it when it's not waterlogged and try to assess whether how much is it waterlogged all year round. That's my best answer for that one. Thank you, Daim.
Thank you, Chris, for the very precise answer. I think it's not a straightforward case working in the pit swamp ecosystem. It's very a lot of parameters that need to be considered. Next question is from Mr. Charles Garcia. I think this is a bit open or to Robert. Not sure, yeah. Okay, the question is, are you saying the project is only concerned about the habitat for orangutan only, or are you also considering the general habitat of other wildlife species? I think Robert Major is trying to type here, but somehow if you can answer lively, Robert, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Indra. In fact, Mr. Chavez did the question on what actually is the objective of the planting efforts in Northern Nusa. So I have answered that, which is to restore and protect the degraded orangutan habitats in Bukit Piton. And this question, are you saying the project is only concerned about the habitat of orangutan? For information, the orangutan is the flagship species in Bukit Piton. And of course, in this restoration project, it's also benefit to other wildlife species, which is I did presented just now, because we frequently cited like samba deer or wild boar or even elephants in Bukit Piton. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for your response. I think, yeah, orangutan is the flagship or umbrella species at Bukit Piton. So means that you address orangutan problem. So probably we will address other wildlife habitats, wildlife species as well. So I would like to read one question, I think from Professor Pua. Yes. Question for Dr. Joseph. I have noticed there are patches of mangrove dieback in Kuala Abai. Any idea and why? Dr. Joe, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Pua. Thank you, Indra. Yeah. Patches of dieback in Kuala Abai is actually mainly there are two types of or two incidents causing dieback of mangrove. One, lightning. Number two, because of some species of beetles or insect. In Kuala Aba itself, definitely it's a sand mining, pasir, korek pasir in Kuala Aba. So that is, I think, the third causing the dieback of patches of mangrove in that particular area. So that's why this project, SFD ISMI collaboration, agreed to look into this problem, and we are starting step by step. So thank you for the question, Professor Pua. We are working on it, on the dieback, apart from lightning, apart from insect, and here we are. We have this sand mining activity, korek pasir, somewhere in Kuala Abai. So this is the problem at the moment. So thank you for raising this question. So I hope I answer your question.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Thank you, Prof. Pua, for the question. I think because of the human intervention, modification of the the ecosystem that caused the the dieback syndrome in Kuala Aba. Yeah. So I'm not sure about other question. Do we receive the new one? So
We
far,
have
none.
one
Then I
question,
would
Tuan
like
Indra.
to.
We have one question for Dr. Yap actually in the chat section. I think we mislooked that. It's from Audrey Lee. Do you want me to help you inform the question, Tuan Indra?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I cannot catch up already.
Yeah.
Too old already.
Okay, so the question is from Miss Audrey Lee to Dr. Yap. Her question is, could you illustrate further on mortality rate related to human factor? Yeah, so over to you, Dr. Yap.
Okay, I have replied that actually. If the planting compartment is too big for us to when we do the lines or gap planting, the workers tend to be more clumsy in distributing the seedlings in the block, and so the further away from the road, the more mortality you can find. So you experience that more mortality then. So that's my answer to Audrey, please. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yap, for the quick answer. I think we received one question, right? Is from Benny or anonymous? There is an anonymous. Benny, to all speakers, is there any efforts on restoration project of degraded forest fragments within oil palm smallholders that are important as stepping stone for wildlife? In example, around Ulu Sapa Payau VGR. This is quite interesting question as well towards to oil palm certification, perhaps. Yeah, Benny, you asking. So I open to all speakers to respond. Dr. Yap, Robert, Chris, Joseph. Any response?
Maybe the session chair can answer this.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Back to me. So I guess this is very interesting question actually on the smallholders. For the big players, definitely they have the motivation to get a certification. But for the oil palm smallholders, this is another. But somehow with the in Sabah we have JCAC jurisdictionally sustainable palm oil certification, for example, this is the platform for us indirectly to influence the smallholders to participate in a what you call restoring or enhancing the habitat quality in their HCV area. So this is not easy, but somehow again the motivation. So if we look into the broader perspective that certification of oil palm in the long run will bring the benefits not only to the commodity itself, but also to the wildlife example. Yeah. So another question. This is last, I guess. Yeah. Ben, this is Dr. Yap. Yeah. Oh, Dr. Yap and Dr. Robert, how do you systematically address the issue of site species matching when you are planting so many species and the forest conditions are so varied?
Yeah.
Three many factors including soil, light, moisture, and nutrients. Okay. Any response from Dr. Yap and also Robert, please?
Okay, maybe I can start. Maybe I can answer that, Mr. Tuan Indra. Okay. For site species matching, in what we have experienced in Bukit Piton, we observe the percentage of the sunlight exposure or the shade condition. For example, like in the open area, like 95% to 100% of sunlight exposure. So this is normally what we plant pioneer species, fast-growing tree, or fruit trees. So, and for shade in the shade condition in the shade area, like 20% to 95% exposure of sunlight, this normally plant shade tolerant species, for example, Dipterocarp and also non-Dipterocarp. Yeah, I think that's all. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Maybe from Dr. Yap, please.
Okay, thank you, Indra. Thanks, Charles, for the answer questions. To answer you, we have several PhD studies has completed on these studies, looking at species trait and also versus the ecophysiology measurements against this species. What we observe and experience also, every Diplocarp species has their range. And because of this range, based on our experience, we can plant them in quite a varied environment. So they're able to survive, but they may not be their best, but they're able to survive. And then later on growing slowly and as they move on. But these studies have shown that because of the variations, like for Kapo, Paji, the Drebelanus lanceolata has a very wide range. So we can plant in more areas than more site conditions, more varied conditions. And also the Shorea leprosula is, as we know that they need more light and then they can survive in more light, although they can survive in dark area, but they also can survive better in more light. So that's how the variations, that's learning from the experience, and we train that to the staff. And so that's why when the staff is actually planting on the ground, they move these species, what they want to put it in there. So because of that, the biodiversity, and that reduce much of course, reduce much of the mortality and so on. And the survival rates are much improved. I hope that's answer a bit of a question. When you're doing on a large scale, it's a bit difficult to do actual site species matching. Research is the one that you can get the answer. So 2 PhD has already done that. One is Philip Senner from Zurich, and the other one is from Umeå from the Sweden. Recent PhD studies.
Thank you, Dr. Yap, for the response. I think this is the last question that we will entertain. From Prof. Congrats to COPEL for their efforts and trying it to the community tourism activities. May I know your strategy to navigate through this rough time due to the pandemic? I think the question addressed to Fikri, I believe. Fikri, do you have any response on that? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Indra. I think I have problem with my camera. I can't. Okay. Okay. So
Okay, just proceed.
the strategy of COPEL to navigate through this rough time in this pandemic is we try to secure any funds from the non-government organization NGOs, and recently we received funds from the Yayasan Hasana to do forest restoration, and this has kept COPEL afloat financially. And we also receive various help from the government, from the federal government. And yeah, this is how we survive in this almost 1 year without tourists coming. Thanks, Tuan Indra.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fikri, for your very quick and precise response just now. I think we have reached to the end of our Q&A session. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank to all the speakers and participants for your active involvement and support. Before we end this webinar session, I would like to quote a popular Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If you will have a meaningful International Day of Forest 2021. We will meet again until the next webinar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and bye-bye. Over to Miss Beth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Tuan Indra for the wonderful facilitating of the session just now for the webinar today. Thank you so much to Tuan Indra, and of course, congratulations and thank you to all the speakers involved, Mr. Christopher Matunjau, Dr. Joseph Tanga, Mr. Robert Mijol, Mr. Muhammad Shafikri bin Rosli, and Dr. Yap Sawai. So I see Dr. Atachung finally on his video. Hello everyone. So we have reached the end of our webinar today. So just to inform all the speakers, you will receive a token of appreciation, a gift set sponsored by Sabah Forestry Department and also by the United Nations Development Program. This gift set, already look inside. This gift set is very wonderful. Congratulations to all of you. You can get it from me, or you can contact any of us, any of the secretariats to collect your gift set. So if you do not collect it, I will waris it. Okay. So again, thank you and congratulations to everyone. So we have a poll. I think Vivian will execute the poll in just a moment. So please kindly fill in the questions in the poll. So we have around, Vivian, can you please put up the poll? Okay, it may take quite some time. Okay, I see the polling right now. The first question is, considering your complete experience at the event, how likely are you to recommend our future events to your friends or colleagues? And then the second question, how would you rate the organization? And the third question, what are the things you like the most? So I really like this question. Is it the handsome and pretty speakers, the presentation contents, the pre-event information, for example, the e-flyers and video promo, the organizing committee, the duration of the webinar, and yeah. So a lot of people are answering right now. So the fourth question, did the event help you with new learnings or knowledge? Yes or no? So please answer and fill in all these polls. And then again, we would like to promote to you the activities in Rainforest Discovery Center in conjunction with the International Day of Forest. So lots of fun activities await you in Rainforest Discovery Center from 20 March until 21st March. So please go and visit the Rainforest Discovery Center. So Thank you, everyone. So I noticed in the chat section, there's this one question from Mr. Colin Go. So Mr. Colin, maybe you can directly email any of the speakers to know more about this that you have posted. Yeah. So the webinar is recorded, and the recorded webinar will be posted as usual in the Sabah Forestry Department Facebook account, and you can always visit our Sabah Forestry Facebook account. We will post all information related to Sabah Forestry inside the Facebook account. So if any of you would like to say anything, Dr. Atta, maybe a few words from you? Okay, no words. No, Dr. Atta? Yeah, we actually miss your golden voice. That's why I asked you to maybe say a few words. But okay, thank you. So yeah, from Izan Rashid, I see this event venue is at auditorium. Can we get the gift set now? Mr. Izan, the gift set is only for the speakers. But if you would like to receive the gift set, maybe you can become one of our speaker in the next and future events. So all of you, the participants, if any of you would like to, give a talk or give a presentation in our webinar, you are most welcome to do so. And of course, you will receive this wonderful gift set from UNDP. Okay. Oh, my apologies, said Izan Rashid. No worries, no worries. We won't bite. Okay. Yeah, so if anybody of the speakers would like to, say a few words, you are most welcome to do so. Vian, any words from you? No? No. Okay, so that is all from us, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you have had a very wonderful and fruitful webinar today, and we hope to see you in the next and in the future webinars, in the upcoming webinars organized by the Sabah Forestry Department. Till then, I see you when I see you, and again, happy International Day of Forest in advance. Thank you for us, and thank you for supporting us, and keep supporting us, and please join us again in our future programs and webinars. Thank you. Thank you.